so now today we're going to be adding in the NY Lotto part of the app. So let's get to it. So the first thing we want to look at is basically what the API is going to look like. So if I maximize my screen now, so this is pretty much the NY Lotto API website. And I'll add the link in the description so you can check it out yourself. And we've seen this before. So basically it's just some quick description and pretty much how often the data is updated. But we care more so about what the data looks like. So let's look over here. See if I can zoom in. Yeah. So with this one, we get the date, we get the winning numbers, and for them, I guess for NY Lotto, it's the bonus ball. So that's what we get. If we want to look at what it looks like in the API, which is what we really care about even more, is let's go over here. But just as a reminder to see it, when you're on this screen, just click the actions button, go down to API here, and then you can just copy this URL right here. And then once you have that, pretty much just paste that in your browser, and it will pretty much load the API, JSON looking API for that. So you see we have a draw date again. From our previous videos, we had something similar. The format looks similar as well. We have a winning numbers variable, but for them, I guess it's just a bonus ball number. So let's build this out, and we're gonna go a bit faster since we already did this in like 2-1 for Powerball and Mega Millions. So we're just gonna roll more faster with this. So the first thing that we're gonna need, now we know we need, is basically the endpoint right here, right? And we need to make a model that matches this. Since right now we have no model that matches that. So the first thing we're gonna do, let's make this like half the screen. And then we could do half the screen for this. All right. And now what we're gonna do is basically go to our models, our model folder right here. And we already have a Powerball winning numbers, we have a Mega Ball winning numbers. So let's just add a NY Lotto winning numbers or struct model too. So you struct NY Lotto winning numbers. I should have said model. And we know we have to make it decodable. Did that a bunch of times. And we also know we have to make it identifiable. Did that a bunch of times too. So scroll up a bit more. And then here we're gonna, because we have identifiable, we actually need the ID. So we can say something like UUID right here. And then the other thing it says is that we need a draw date. Now, if you're new here, you might notice that I'm not using the snake case that the API is showing. I'm actually just using camel case. And the reason for that is because whenever we use our JSON decoder to decode it, we can basically set the strategy that we want. So we can say like, yo, even though it's coming to us as a snake case, decode it as a camel case. So this will work. And then other thing is winning numbers. So we'll say winning numbers. And we know that this is a string, but we're actually going to treat this, we're going to transform this to an array in the next step, not this step. So bonus, this is the last thing, and this is also a string. So remember when I was saying, if you look at winning numbers here, right, you'll see that it's just one long string with each number, but it's separated by a space. So what we did in pretty much the previous models is we pretty much split it. So based on every white space, we created a new element. So we'll do the same thing here and add it to an array. So let's just copy this. Come on, see. Paste this here. And now this is good. So now we already have our NY Lotto winning numbers that matches with this model. So we're good right here. Let's just maximize this fully. And now we're going to jump over to our services layer. So the thing that we need here now is pretty much the API endpoint. So I could really just be like private let NY Lotto endpoint and do the same thing here. And then just run back to where we have our API. Copy this, Command C, jump back to Xcode, and then just paste it in here. And then we would kind of be okay. I mean, but this isn't the neatest way to do this. I'm going to show you a better way how to handle multiple different endpoints using enums. But before I do that, let's just fill out some more of this service layer setup. So what we know we're gonna need is we need to update our lottery services so that it can also get NY Lotto numbers. So let's just do that. So we'll say func fetch NY Lotto numbers. Keep the same like convention. We know we're gonna make async and throws since we're using Swift concurrency. And then let's call our model, NY Lotto winning numbers, which is our model. So now our class here, which conforms to our lottery services, is gonna start complaining. Let's just add the function that is complaining about. So we scroll up here and we just say fetch NY Lotto winning numbers. We'll see it pretty much just comes up here and asks for it. Now I'm gonna go fast this time only because we've done this a bunch of times based on the previous videos. So get ready. So first thing we're gonna do is say guard let. We're gonna get this as a URL. And what we're gonna do is take the one that accepts a string. And then the reason for this is we're gonna pass in the endpoint for NY Lotto endpoint that we just got. We're gonna pass this in here to transform it to a URL. That, and then else, and then we're gonna throw our errors because remember our function throws. And the error we're gonna throw for this is the lottery error, not URL error. We already have that. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is basically we're gonna set up a do catch, and this is because the function that we're gonna call is basically can throw an error. So it's gonna be called this. So it's gonna say URL session dot shared because it's a singleton. And if you don't know what a singleton is, don't worry, just keep following. And then we'll say data, and then go down to the one that takes a URL but also async throws. So this one right here. And then the URL we created up here, we're just gonna toss this inside here. Nice. And then this function can actually throw an error. So let's mark it with a try. Also, because this is an asynchronous function, and if you're not sure, again, just option click on it and you'll see that it has this async keyword as well as a throws keyword. So let's just do try await. And then the last thing is, if we option click on this again, we see that it returns a data type, a tuple with a data type and a URL response. And you also see this warning that's saying like, yo, result of call to that is unused. So basically you're not using the variable that this function returns. So let's just use that. So let's say let data. We're doing a tuple, that's why you see these parentheses, and then we're gonna say data response, right? And equal. Get rid of that. Now the next thing we're gonna do is check if the response is good. So whether it's a 200, between our 299. But before we can get like the status code to know that, we have to convert the response to a HTTP URL response. And if I feel like I'm going too fast, I highly recommend you check out the previous videos, specifically the Powerball video, where I go much slower and kind of give you more detail. This is more so assuming that you've watched those already and you're kind of used to this. All right. So now response, and then we're gonna say as that, and we're gonna convert it to a HTTP URL response right there. Then we'll say else, and then for this we're just gonna throw a lottery error, and then this is gonna be a HTTP URL error. Good. Now with this HTTP URL response variable, we can actually get the status code from this. So now we're gonna say guard 200.299, and then we're gonna check if our status code is in between 200 or 299. And so we'll say HTTP URL response, status code right there, and then we'll say else, and then we're gonna throw a lottery error of type invalid status code. And now after these two checks, we basically check to see if, well, this is a valid response. So now we can start working with the data. So now what we're gonna do is basically, first we're gonna add something called a JSON decoder. And this is pretty much what's used to like decode the data and transform it to what we want it as. All right. And for this, I remember when I was saying that the API Remember this API, it returns as a camel case. You see the underscore here too. But for our models that we're gonna use to decode this, I am not adding this in camel case. I'm not adding this in snake case. I'm actually adding this in camel case. So boom, what we're gonna say is we're gonna have to add a decoding strategy to our JSON decoder. So just as a reminder, these with the underscore are in snake case, and in my app I'm using camel case. So this right here with the capital letters, no underscore. So I'm going to add a strategy to our JSON decoder. So any type of snake case it says, all right, transform this to the camel case equivalent. So to do that, all you have to do is literally say JSON decoder dot key decoding strategy. So equal, and then you see it says it convert from snake case. Boom. So now that's handled. And now if we go down here, the next thing that we're going to do is basically say JSON decoder dot decode type from, and the type that we're going to decode, want to decode it to, is basically this array of NY Lotto winning numbers. And then remember to put self outside of this so that you're specifying the type. And what do we want to decode? This data that we got back from the URL session. Drop data here. And this also, one, can throw an error, so we have to mark it with a try. You can put it in a do catch block if you like, but for now I'll just do a try. Equal, and then this is actually going to give us back the data. So for this we'll just say NY Lotto winning numbers, right? Space right there, and then we'll say return NY Lotto winning numbers. And if you see like you have some like alignment issues, what you can do really fast is just say like command A, and then say something like Control I, and then that will pretty much align for you. Now this last catch block is just like you could use this as like your unknown state, where if some issue happens, you could just say throw, and then say NY Lotto. Lottery error, sorry, and then unknown, and then we'll throw in the error that we get from the error variable what we get from any catch block right here. So now we have our view pretty much set up to do this. I'm gonna show you a way how to handle date, but I'm gonna hold that for now. If you have watched the previous videos, you already know what I'm about to do, but if not, just stick around. So now we are actually gonna go. So now we have our service set up to get NY Lotto data. So we haven't even built out the view yet. So let's just build that out real quick. So what we're gonna do is the same way we have a Mega Millions folder, and we have a Powerball folder service. We're gonna add an actual New York Lotto folder. So new folder. I'm gonna say NY Lotto, right? We're gonna have two things in here: a Swift UI view, a NY Lotto view, and then we're gonna also have an NY Lotto view model. All right, view model, right? And then so let's create this NY Lotto view model, and we know we're gonna have to make this an observable object, and then we have to give it the dependency of the services so that you can actually use them. So lottery services, and just as a reminder for if you're new, we're using the protocol type here, not the actual class, because we want to be able to use this for unit testing, and we don't want to make real API calls in our unit tests. You see me? So now just say init, and we get that. So that will just autocomplete for Xcode for that. So now let's add the function to actually fetch the NY Lotto winning numbers. Lotto winning numbers. And we know this is going to be using an asynchronous function, so we can just mark this as async for now. Because remember, inside our lottery service, the NY Lotto winning numbers was asynchronous function. So we have to mark the function that's actually going to be calling it with async. So now let's do this. So we'll say do catch, because even though the function is asynchronous, it can throw an error too. So we'll say let NY Lotto winning numbers is equal to try await, and then we'll say services, and then we'll say fetch NY Lotto numbers. And then when we get it, what we're gonna do to test it like we did before, I'll say NY Lotto winning numbers. And then for this error part here, let's just print error. Now this is okay. Basically, now we have a function that will pretty much fetch the data and at least just print it. Eventually, we're gonna show it in a view now. So now inside our view right here, right? What we could do is just swap that out, that text out with a V stack, or we could do better yet a navigation stack. So we can give the view a title. So we'll go on here, and then I'll say that navigation title, add that modifier. And then the title for this one is definitely going to be, well, NY Lotto. Right? So now that we have this here, what we're going to do is actually, let me run the preview so you can see a visual while we do this. And while the preview loads, what I'm going to do is actually give this an additional property, our parameter. And you can see this over here. And the property is going to be pretty much the view model that we just created. It's the NY Lotto view model. Remember, that's where we're actually using the services to get the data, and then we're going to pass it to the view. So the Lotto view needs to have this as a property, so our parameter. So now we're going to say, so before we were always doing observe object, and that does work as we saw, but we're actually going to make a switch, and we're going to make some updates as we do this. So instead of using observed object, we're going to use something called a state object. And it's really similar to observed object, but state object is best used if it's like you're using the view model and you want to listen for changes from, like, say, a parent view, so like the main view. And in this case, NY Lotto view would be a main view, Mega Millions view would be a main view, Powerball view would be a main view. But observed object, what we were using before, is more so observer type of similar, but it's more so used for like a child view. Like, say if NY Lotto view had another view inside of it that would need the view model, then you could make that observed object. So we're actually going to change it to state objects in the other views too, after we make this update to the preview. So let's just add this in for the preview. Hit that. It's going to ask for a service. Let's just give it this concrete one. Nice. And now our view is looking pretty good. But since we've changed the state object here, right? Let's just change the state object in also the Powerball view too. So observe object, no more. State object, Mega Millions view. State object, no more. Now observed object, no more. State object, come in. So if we go back to NY Lotto view, right, we still have this screen, but if we run the app right now, we won't see a tab for this. So to see a tab for this, we have to go to content view, and then right inside our tab view here, right, we're gonna scroll down, and we're gonna add a new view called NY Lotto view model. It has a service implementation, and so forth. We can just get rid of this portion here. And now all we have to do is basically just give it a tab item. So I'll just copy this one for now. Go down here. And then instead of having it say Mega Millions, I'm just going to have it say NY Lotto. And then instead of doing $ circle, let's just try $ for now. We'll change the image in a little bit. So now, if we follow our preview and we'll go over to NY Lotto, we see a blank screen because we're not really doing anything yet. So before we do that though, let's jump back to NY Lotto view model. Where are you? Right here. And jump back to NY Lotto view. And we're going to test out our view model just to make sure we're actually getting the data. So to do that, we're going to add something called a task modifier. I'm going to say await since it's asynchronous. And then we'll say view model, then fetch NY Lotto winning numbers. We're going to jump back to our view model now and set a breakpoint on both line 16 for when we should print it if it's successful, and line 18 to where it would have a error occur if it's not successful with getting the data from the API, and then run it. Now, this will only hit once we are on the NY Lotto screen, since that's how the task modifier works. They see we're on the screen and we're inside the catch. We're not inside the catch block. We're in the do block. And if I maximize this, and you see we're about to print, if I should get rid of that, do this, scroll up here, and then allow it to print, you see we see all this data, so we know this is working fine. That's good. So now we can just tap this, get rid of this print statement that we have here, and also get rid of the breakpoints. And what we're going to do instead is actually, instead of just having the data that we get locked to this scope pretty much inside this function, we want to have access to it outside. So we have to add something called a publish variable. And this is going to be, this is called winning numbers. And this is our type, NY Lotto winning numbers. And for now, it is empty. And instead of putting our data that we get from our API inside this variable, what we're going to do instead is put it inside winning numbers, right? And then if we wanting to note, and we found this out earlier, we're going to have to mark this in the main actor. Since it's an asynchronous function, but we're going to use the variable winning numbers to update our UI. So we have to mark it as a main actor here. So now if we jump back to NY Lotto view and we say go here and we just say boom list, right? And we say view model the winning numbers, and then we go here, what's the winning number, and we say in, and we simply just create, say, a V stack. And then inside this V stack, remember, we want to have the date, and then we also want to have the horizontal balls view, which we have a view for. So the first thing we're going to say is say date, so text, and we're going to say winning number dot date, draw date. The date is going to look really weird right now, but we'll fix that in a second. And the next thing that we're going to say is, aside from date, is the horizontal balls view, right? We created in the previous video. And we're going to pass in an array of winning numbers, which are strings. So it's a winning numbers dot numbers array, and then you put what color you want the balls to be. For this, I'll make them green. And then the other thing that we're going to get is actually a bonus number. So if we look at the API, you see that they also have this thing called a bonus ball or whatever bonus number. I'm just going to put bonus. So I'll say text. And then I'll say bonus. And then I'll say winning number dot bonus right here. And now what's gonna happen is if I run this, so we're gonna fetch the data from the API. Whenever this value gets updated, we'll show some data on the screen. So let's run it. And if we go to the NY Lotto view, you'll see that now we see the balls appear right here. So one thing you're noticing right away is that we can't see the date properly. So the reason for that is because pretty much if we maximize, like I was mentioning earlier, to fix this, just go to services, and we did it in the previous views too for handling services. So we have to add a date decoding strategy to our JSON decoder. So to do this, all we have to do is say, scroll up, we're going to say JSON decoder dot date decoding strategy. We'll say equal, and you want to use the one that's formatted. They can pass in a date formatter. And we did this a couple times before. You can see we did it here, and so forth and so forth. So we can kind of just copy this. You can do it a couple ways. You could bring out the date formatter and pretty much put it out here, like outside of the function itself, so that you can use it throughout. Once we do a cleanup video, we'll actually do that, but you can do that right now if you like. So basically what's happening here is I added a date formatter, and then I gave the date formatter format that you should look out for, which is this. And this format pretty much matches, which does matches. Accidentally click on the calendar. this format does match this date that we have here, right here. So basically the JSON decoder will now be able to decode dates like that and convert it to a Swift date type, which is easier for us to handle. So let's just pass in date formatter there. And one thing we have to do in our model, right? Since our JSON decoder knows how to handle dates like that, change this draw date from a string to a date type. And now if you go to NY Lotto view, this right here, this text is gonna be complaining because it's saying like, yo, I'm a text. It's not complaining right now because I'm still running it. But now you see complaining. It's saying like, yo, I'm text. I expect text, not a date type. To fix this, all you have to do is just hit add a new parameter, and this is style, and then just put date right here. And now that you have date, when we run our preview, we will now see a better time dating for it. So it's now you see March 26th, March 22nd, etc. It's not just that jumbled text anymore. The one thing to note is that also in our other views, we were doing something similar. So if I go to Powerball view, our Powerball row view, you'll see that for dates, we were doing something like this. So what we could do is just take these modifiers, Command C, and then go back over to our NY Lotto view and then just add them to our date view here. And now you'll see that the text is one more bold and easy to see, but you don't see that gray background to it. The reason for that is because it's inside a group box. So we can just add this inside a group box too. One word. Whoops. And just add that inside a group box. And now you see the dates much more better like that. So this is looking really good. The next thing that we're going to do is fix the issue that we see here where some of the numbers are kind of like on top of each other. To do that, just jump to your horizontal balls view. And then for text, what we're going to change is, let's go here and let's just say fix size. Instead of make horizontal be true, I make vertical be false. And then if we go back to our view over here, which is NY Lotto view, you'll see that now numbers are all on the same like horizontal. You don't see any more numbers to the top. And because we added this to our reusable view, all our other screens are fixed like that. So if you run, and let's minimize Xcode for a second, and now we're on the Powerball view, you see we don't see any issues with numbers like on top of each other anymore. And if we go to Mega Millions, same thing, no more of that issue. And then also same for pretty much NY Lotto. So this is looking good. Let's just tap this for a second and we'll maximize again. And now we basically have a basic setup of our NY Lotto view. So let's go here and let's add a spinner. So we'll go here and we'll say dot dot. I'll add something called published. Var is loading. Boolean, make it equal to false. And then at the beginning of this, we'll say is loading is equal to true. Like basically this is when we want to show the spinner. And then here we'll say is loading is equal to false. And then again in the catch block, in case we get an error, we also want to remove the spinner. And to make it, let's add some space around this. And to basically make it that we see the spinner when this happens is, you have to add something called an overlay. So let's just get some space here. And then right below our task, we could add something called dot overlay, a modifier. And we'll say if, scroll up, we could say if view model that is loading to a progress view, and pick the one that takes some type of title so you can make it that the user knows what's happening, and say fetching NY Lotto winning numbers. Nice. And now, and whenever is loading is true, we will see that spinner. Sometimes the data comes in pretty fast, but you see it pretty briefly there. Yeah. So that's looking good. If we maximize again, and now this part is pretty good. The next thing is if we jump back to NY Lotto view model, The next thing we're going to want to add is errors. Like we want to show errors if, like, say, the API fails or something. So to do that, we're going to add a couple more publish variables. So the first one we're going to add is publish var, and this is going to be error message, like whatever the string is, the text we want to show. Empty string for now. And then we're going to add another publish variable, and then this is going to be show error alert. So this is a boolean, and then whenever this is true, basically that's when you show the error alert. So we'd want to do this when we're inside the catch block, but we want to show our custom error. So we'll say if let custom error is equal to error as lottery error, and then we'll say error message is equal to custom error, which is our lottery error message, and then we'll say show error alert, toggle it. So then whenever it turns it to true, that says, well, show the error alert now. Now we have to hook it up now inside of view. So if we jump over to NY Lotto view, and then we go down here, and we say dot alert, we can go down to the last one. This is my favorite one. I'll say use it as a binding, so we'll put a $sign in front of it, and then we'll say show error alert. Hit that, and then we'll type in alert, and then for text, we're gonna put in view model that error message right there, and then whenever we get to error, we'll basically see a pop-up right there. So if we go to the service, right, and we decide to mess up the API, like one of these, like get rid of data, and we run it. When we go to the NY Lotto screen, we should see an error pop up. So if we go to NY Lotto, you see this error, something went wrong, so we know that we have that. Now there's a way how to add like a better screen right here. So it's not just a blank white screen. But I did it in other videos, so I'll make it that you can kind of hunt for that one. I'm not going to give you that one, but it's pretty easy. Basically, you have to just check the data that you have in your array. That's the only hint I'm going to give you. All right, so now let's maximize again. And we can just undo so that we know our data is working. And let's just rerun it just to make sure that, yeah, it's working fine without errors. All right, cool. All right, so that's good. So now you basically have a Powerball, a lottery app that has a Powerball section, a Mega Millions section, and a NY Lotto section. So basically, you could just add some ads in here, like some banners, some Google ad mobs, and you could possibly start making some money. So just a heads up, you basically have an app that you could use. All right, so now the next thing that we're going to do is, you remember I mentioned that there's a better way to handle multiple APIs like this. So what usually is done is basically you put these inside the enum. So we're going to do that. So let's create a new folder for enum. So we could put it in services. I think it's fine if you put it in services. Some people are keeping it separate, but I think it's fine. So create a new folder inside service, and we're going to call this endpoints, and I don't know why I said it like that. And then we'll say switch file, command N, and then we'll say endpoints. And in here, we're just gonna start typing in something called end point, and then we're gonna add the cases for the different endpoints that we have. So the first one, Powerball. Then the other one was Mega Millions. Then the last one was NY Lotto, right? So now we are gonna add like a different variable inside here that links to each of these cases of enum, for the enum. So we're gonna say var, and then we're just gonna call this API, right? And it's just gonna be a string. And then we're gonna do something called switch, and it's self. Basically, you're switching on this enum. Self is whatever you're inside of. So you see, that's why we can use case Powerball or whatever. So jump over to service. Actually, I'm gonna show you a better way. So if you option click on service, it will open up a separate another window like right next to you. So now all you have to do is for Powerball, let's just do return. We're gonna have it return this string, Command C. And then same thing for Mega Millions. We're gonna have it return the same endpoints that we're using. We're just putting them in a separate area or isolating them much better. And then the last thing for NY Lotto endpoint, just copy C. And we're gonna return this. Sure. Paste right there. So now you can honestly just get rid of this stuff in your lottery services. And we can close that one. And now we're back inside just our lottery services. So naturally, you're gonna see this complaint right now saying it doesn't know what Powerball endpoint is. But to fix this, all you have to do is just use endpoints. Because remember, that's where we're storing our endpoints now. I'm gonna say endpoints, Powerball, and then just do API. I remember this returns the same Powerball URL. So this right here. Right? And now if we go down to the other one, the same thing. So it's saying, I don't know what Mega Millions, endpoints, Mega Millions, not API. And then the last one for NY Lotto, that are doing that, endpoints, NY Lotto, the API. And if we run this, you'll see that the app is still working fine. Okay, so we see all the Powerballs still. We see all of Mega Millions still. And we see all the NY Lotto still. So we're pretty good. And basically you have created an app, as I said, that has 3 different type of lotteries that the user can scroll through and use. So in the next video, that's where we're going to start adding in some unit tests just to make sure that everything in our Powerball screen is working as expected. And unit test is one of them things that a lot of developers don't like, but trust me, it's a great safeguard and an important skill to know. So again, you've been doing really good. You're a programmer now. And remember, anyone can learn anything with time, practice, and failures. And as I always say, I'm out.